Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. A special matinee edition of the Writing Speakeasy. And today will be an extension of last night's politics episode. I think, as you can all tell, I enjoy talking about politics, and that with thereto of. Now, I started last night's episode talking about education. And as a society, where are we going as far as education goes? And what are we learning, if anything? And how that relates to society, which led into my power piece. And I wanted to re-emphasize my points about education, which doesn't sound all too political, but when you really think about it, it is, because another thing that I'm seeing as far as education is not just us as a society, but the politicians themselves. I live in PA, and, of course, the governor here is Tom Corbett. I made a video that's on my YouTube channel about him. I'm not too fond of him. I just think that his policies are made out for himself, by himself, and for him and his little friends, the prophet. Where this lies in with education is he would like to privatize the teachers in the schools, which I don't know exactly what that means, but I do know one thing. That will mean some teachers will either lose their jobs, quit, or not have enough money to teach. And if that were to happen, well, guess what? People won't learn, and then kids will run off and do the things that they do. And I think we all know what I mean by that. Now, education isn't the entire root of our problems and or our success in this world today. But when I say education, I specifically am not speaking on just, how many algebraic formulas do you know, or how many books of literature have you read, or how many business methods do you know, what numbers can you crunch, anything like that. That stuff is what I call book smart. You may know a lot of it, and you know the facts, but either you don't know why, or you do, and you don't care to pursue it further. What do I mean by that? Algebraic formulas and business methods and all that, they definitely can help us in the world, and I'm not trying to denigrate it in any way. If you want to make money, great opportunity, be a businessman. Times like these, you may not make as much, but when the economy gets back up, which I believe it will, trust me, you will see the results and the profits. Being a mathematician, you can be a teacher, you can do other things. Architecture has a lot of math involved. There are things that you could do. But what I mean by education is not specifically, but partially it entails with history and the world that we live in today. What I mean by history? Well, let's be real here. A lot of the curriculums in our schools, do they really? First of all, let's say this. It's been brought up a lot, and I've heard a lot of people say it, but I will say it as well because I feel the same way. We don't really have any information in our schools, if much, on Native American history. We don't have the stories aren't told about what really happened to them. I just found out last night online on a Wikipedia page, for Christ's sake, that some of the Native Americans died because European diseases were carried from there and they could not tolerate it. Now, either it was brought up and very not mentioned all too much, or it wasn't brought up at all. My feeling was that all the European settlers drove them off their lands, which a lot of them definitely did. But where are they in those? Where are they in our books? Where is the history in our books? Why do we not know more about certain things as far as Native American, Latino, Black history, even white history? I would probably get shit from this from a lot of people and maybe even be called a racist. I'm part Puerto Rican and part German. Now, I'm a lazy fuck, so that would explain why I haven't pursued it yet. But part of my dream is to learn some things, at least, of my cultures and my history. Not just my Puerto Rican side, which everybody tells me to pursue. I want to learn more of my German side, too, and I want to learn the Spanish and German languages. Why is none of that in our curriculums in these schools? But the biggest thing, and I brought this up in my piece, my poem last night, when I say be informed, we're not only not informed, we're taught not to inform. What do I mean by that? I said in one of my lines, we are never told growing up why we should go to college. Nobody ever truly gave me as I was going through school, people said, oh, go to college, go to college. I have like a side hobby being interested in the weather, and people told me, go to college to be a meteorologist. Well, why? I never got an answer. No, I got an answer for like some friends and siblings and stuff. Oh, for the money. Which, let's be real here, that is a good and practical excuse. As much as we want to deny it, it is a pertinent interest in our lives. Money is a part of our lives, and there's no way of escaping that. I have said profoundly on my blogs, on some of my shows, in my poems, I want to write for the rest of my life and do this as a career. Would I be lying to you if I said I was doing it just because I love it? Of course I would. Money is involved in that as well. I mean, I don't want to be broke when I'm 35 without a home. That's just how it is. But I love what I do. Now, that's going to be a key into where I'm going with this later. But as we tell people around us, and I don't mean just younger people, anybody, Why should we go to college? Why should we do anything? I just wish once these teachers, the curriculums, the superintendents, the schools would just, the guidance counselors, ask one simple question. What do you like to do? As a counselor back to a kid. The kid doesn't have an answer. Well, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do out of school? Almost every kid has an answer for that. And if they don't, give them a little bit, they'll find something. Even if it's drugs. Well, what do you think about going into a medical field? You can learn about drugs and actually get paid to do it. Obviously, it's not the best example because they'll probably end up, who knows, they might end up stealing the drugs or something. Maybe not a great example, but even the worst possible answers could be turned into something positive. What I mean by that is, let's say I want to think of something just crazy, wild, and stupid. I guess the Jackass guys are an example of that. You know, they were stuntmen all, even back into their high school days. Well, what about being a stunt double in a movie or something? That's obviously a hard route to go to and dangerous, but it could be something profitable. If you put your hard work into it, if you put enough hard work into something, you'll get something out of it. I remember a line I heard the one time with the yin and yang of passion and money. How do you decide one or the other? I don't think you ever have to. Now, this isn't always true. Some people do fall through the cracks. But I heard this saying, I forget where I heard it, and I do think that there is a lot of truth to it. If you care enough about something, if you're passionate enough about something and you work hard enough at it, the money will come. Now, I paraphrase, but I do believe that to be true to some extent. And I recently talked about my piece, Polar Night. That could be an example. It's a small win for me. It's a small example, but I must have tried to pawn that off to 50. Well, pawn's not a good word, but I think you understand what I'm saying. To 50 or 60 different publications. I honestly believe it's the best work I've ever done. Now, I'm not going to lie. It took me from another publication saying it was a great work, but it was above their word limit to be published, for me to realize that. But then I read it back, and I fixed it up too. I changed it up. And I submitted it to a lot of people. And I'm not going to lie, I am proud of the fact that that got published, because I do feel as it is a great piece and it deserves to be in publication somewhere. But that is just an example. You put in the work, and that's not even hard work. That's just, that's consistent work. That's just repetition. You put in the hard work, you have the passion, sooner or later the money will come. Now, I don't know if I'm getting paid for it, but that's just an example. Reward will come. And I wish that teachers, counselors, superintendents, all superintendents not directly, obviously, but all would just ask that to every single kid someday. What do you like to do? Because honestly, in my mind, I feel as though the people who fall through the cracks, a lot of them, they never like anything, they never know to like anything, or they never know what they like. Or they like something, they don't know how much they like it until it's too late. And to me, too late is, I hate to say it, with sports issues, too late is probably your mid to late 20s, because unless golf or something. With the arts, the liberal arts, you could wait until you're in your 40s to figure it out. I got lucky. I'm in my 20s and I figured it out, which means I have a lot more time to grow and get better and really get good at my art and my craft, which I plan on doing. But it's just the point. I wish that they would take more time to help the students figure out what they like to do instead of giving them a stack of books and saying, learn this and pick for yourself what you want. That doesn't help anybody unless they like doing that. That doesn't help any kid. I can tell you right now, I graduated 7 years ago. From what I've learned in my first 18 years and the last 7, I've learned a hell of a lot more in my last 7 than I learned in all those 18 years, 13 of which were in school. I just don't think people focus kids enough onto certain things because kids don't need all that stuff. And then you get to college and you have a major, and I'll get into people not having majors in a minute. Say you have a major and you have to take all these other classes and spend money in books and stuff. Why? You're not there to learn that anymore. And then, of course, there's a lot of people walking around who don't have majors because they don't like what they're doing. They were forced into doing it or coerced, pressured, urged, asked, and they did it to impress people, or they don't know what to do. They don't know what they like, and nobody ever helped guide them to the way. Some people can figure it out on their own. A lot of people actually do. But some people need that steering, especially for people who have multiple interests or none. People who have none actually bother me the most. I remember this one girl who I worked with my last job. I remember we hung out the one time. I don't know why we got on the topic, but I asked her what are her hobbies, and she said nothing, absolutely nothing. And I just couldn't believe it because it's not to denigrate anybody who lives like that, but I couldn't imagine living like that, where you have nothing that you like. I couldn't imagine it. I would go crazy. Or I'd be drinking every day, which, if any of you know my past, you would know that that's not a good idea. But anyway, I just wanted to speak on that as far as education goes. And then as a society, how that relates. We end up being pressured into all these things or coerced or urged. We don't really want to do them. We do them, and it almost teaches us, don't do what you like. Do for the money, do for the buck, and that's it. And when you get like that, you turn into a selfish individual. Because any businessman to me, or a politician especially, is a selfish individual. Almost any. I don't want to generalize. Because you almost have to be that way because you have to be ruthless to get to the top. And we learn to be this way. I think it goes all the way back to being a kid. So I think education, while it is not needed, and again, I don't mean education just in books. I mean education in educating yourself in a certain development as far as your career and life in general, as far as history and the life today that is around you. There's so many people who either don't know or don't care what is all around them, just in their neighborhood, let alone out in the world. And it's a shame. It really is. Anyway, that's my topic on education and how that pertains to politics. That could also explain some ways how our middle class is getting raped and pillaged because when you're not educated, you're never going to know how much you're getting fucked over. I know what politics, I don't know exactly, but I know why politicians want to destroy the middle class, but at the same time, I don't. And when you're not educated, you don't understand how these businessmen or politicians rise to the top. I don't know exactly, but I have a hunch on how they do it. I'm not going to explain it here. I'm running low on time a little bit. But my point is, we need to become more educated as a society to help take on these people. And not necessarily take on these people, but make our lives better so that they can't fuck with us as much. When I said devaluing of the middle class, look at all the taxes that are for us. Look at all the jobs that we've lost to either illegal immigrants or et cetera, lower class workers. There's just so much is steeped on to the middle class. But without a middle class, an economy cannot survive. There's a reason why so many countries in Africa and parts of Europe and Asia, the Middle East, South America even, all have so much problems and so much injustice, and the scales of power are balanced so far to the rich and the powerful. Because when you have no middle class, the rich become more powerful than ever before, and the poor, I don't know how a poor person thinks. I've never been poor specifically. I've been lower middle class at times, but for the most part, I've been in generally, I can't say rich, obviously, or even high middle class, but a generally decently wealthy family. I would assume that they become submissive to it. And that does happen, especially with all the propaganda that floats around in those countries. But look at all those countries. They have one thing in common economically. Their middle class is non-existent. If that happens to this country will become like those countries. And I think it'll be even worse. Because we're such a superpower, this country will probably implode if that were to happen. All the great superpowers on this earth have imploded from within. The Roman Empire, the British Empire to an extent, the Byzantine Empire, all the great empires. I guess if you want to consider the Russian Empire Russia as an empire, the Soviet Union, they all crumbled and collapsed under their own weight because they couldn't handle it. And they had too few people in power. And that also can play into part of what I said yesterday in my power piece. So education is so vital and so important. It's not just book smarts. Be smart to what's around you. Or at least be smart to yourself. And don't let yourself get involved in stuff you shouldn't be. Anyway, that is my little rant today. I thought I would have been a little more animated with it, but hey, can't always get what we want, I guess. I have a leftover poem piece from last night that I wanted to read and didn't get to it, so we will hear it right now. It's called British Lights. Ah! What the hell is going on here? These colors jetting at us? Careening into the air near to us? What do they tell? Where did they come from? We are not Siberia. We are not a freedomless, empty desert of the world. Circle, spiral, orange, and columned lime green glowed into the cold night and tranced us into its belief. We are all equal, and the power of Mother Earth is not the mothers. Even the trees and their dense limbs can flutter in the harsh windstorms of November or January. They also can only witness like us. I want to know why the unknown has made its presence. They call it the Northern Lights. Where has that originated? Union Jack flies strong and proud, not lit by question, though. For out of fear, I'll spread my indignation of change. I'll shower my message of the hues prosecuting or signaling up a force that will try to prosecute us. I'll win over the masses with my wit and secrecy of the truth. That was British Lights. That piece was motivated by a piece I saw online about the Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis, coming to Great Britain earlier this year, and they never received that usually, even though they are very far north on the Earth. They are not above the Arctic Circle, which is usually where the Northern Lights are from, or can be seen. And I just put my own twist to it. Someone seeing it from there, like, oh shit. Anyway, that is all we have for tonight, or today. Next week, I have some shows that are very near to my heart, as a lot of these are. I seem to say that a lot. Next Wednesday will be an episode based on pieces about being unemployed, which is what I have been for 8 months and may come out of this Monday. Then there probably won't be a second episode next week. It will probably have to wait till the week after, because the week after, the 23rd, I plan on having a show about mental illnesses and the stigma surrounding it. I plan on having a poetic show about it, where I read a bunch of poems about it, and then either Thursday or Friday that week, or Saturday at the latest, I will speak on my views about it, and I have a lot to say about that. I'm going to post some blogs sometime later, either today or this week, about it, and I will speak my truth, speak my piece, because that is also a topic that I hold true to my heart as well. I think it needs to be spoken about more, and we're going to have a lot to say about that. I'll be coming up in 2 weeks, the 23rd, and either the 24th, 25th, or 26th. And then we'll see what comes ahead after that. Anyway, this was our show for today. Make sure to upload on YouTube. Make sure to catch my blogs on the internet and more new pieces coming about as they come. Check my Facebook page. Check all that out. If you want to contact me, email me. I would like to see more callers at some point. Well, any callers, but anyways, that's all for today. Thank you. Have a good day. Catch out next Wednesday.